At 2:47 a.m., the most dangerous man in the city answered a phone call that would destroy everything he thought he knew. On the other end wasn't a rival, a traitor, or a threat. It was a 7-year-old girl, her voice shaking with terror, begging a stranger to save her mother. When Dante Moretti walked into that hospital room, he expected nothing. What he found were twin girls with his eyes, his jaw, his blood, and a woman he'd spent 7 years trying to forget. In one night, the king of the underworld discovered he was a father, and he'd missed everything. If you want to see how far this story reaches, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. Let's see where this journey takes us. Post. The phone rang at exactly 2:47 a.m. Dante Moretti didn't sleep much anyway. Sleep was a luxury for men who didn't have enemies circling like sharks in dark water, waiting for one moment of weakness. He was sitting in his private office on the top floor of the Moretti Tower, a glass of scotch untouched on the mahogany desk, surveillance feeds flickering across 4 monitors mounted on the wall. The city sprawled below him, glittering and oblivious, unaware that half its power moved at his command. The ringtone wasn't one he recognized, a generic buzz from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer. In his world, unknown numbers meant 2 things: opportunities or threats. Both required caution. But something made him pick up. Hello? There was breathing on the other end, small, fast, panicked. Then a child's voice, barely above a whisper. Please help. My mama won't wake up. Dante's hand tightened around the phone. He didn't deal with children. He didn't deal with desperate pleas from strangers in the middle of the night. He dealt with contracts, territory, power. This was wrong. This was... Who is this? His voice came out sharper than he intended. My name is Mira. The girl's words tumbled out in a rush, thick with tears. My mama. She fell down and she's not moving, and I don't know what to do, and I found your number in a box, and... Slow down! Dante stood, adrenaline already sharpening his focus. Where are you? Home. But the ambulance is coming. They're taking her to Mercy General. Please, mister. I don't know anyone else. The card said... It said you could help. A card. With his number. Dante's mind raced through possibilities, connections, threats. He didn't hand out his personal number. It was guarded, encrypted, protected. If this child had it, someone had given it to her. Someone from his past. What's your mother's name? The girl hesitated. In the background, he could hear sirens growing louder. Isabella. Isabella Cruz. The glass of scotch slipped from Dante's other hand and shattered against the floor. 7 years. 7 years since he'd heard that name. 7 years since Isabella Cruz had vanished from his life without explanation, without goodbye, without a trace. He'd searched for months, hired the best investigators, torn through every lead, and found nothing. She'd disappeared like smoke. I'm on my way, Dante said, his voice barely recognizable. Stay with the paramedics. Do exactly what they tell you. I'll meet you at the hospital. Okay. Mira's voice was so small. Thank you, mister. The line went dead. Dante stood frozen for exactly 3 seconds. Then he moved. Marco! He was already grabbing his jacket, his keys, his gun. His head of security appeared in the doorway within seconds, alert and ready. Get the car. Mercy General. Now. Boss, what's it? Now. The drive across the city should have taken 20 minutes. Dante made it in 12. His black Aston Martin tore through empty streets, red lights meaningless, speed limits irrelevant. Marco sat silent in the passenger seat, smart enough not to ask questions when Dante's jaw was set like granite, and his hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Isabella. She'd been a light in his world when everything else was darkness. A graduate student working nights at a cafe near the university, brilliant and fierce and completely unimpressed by his reputation. She hadn't known who he was at first. When she found out, she hadn't run. She'd looked him in the eye and told him she didn't care what he did for a living. She cared who he was when no one was watching. For 6 months, she'd been his, and he'd been hers, completely. Then one morning she was gone. Her apartment emptied overnight. Her phone disconnected. Her friends claiming they hadn't seen her, didn't know where she'd gone. He'd been furious, then desperate, then hollow. Eventually he'd forced himself to accept it. She'd left because she'd finally understood what being with him meant. The danger, the violence, the blood that would never wash off his hands. He'd let her go because he'd loved her. And now a child with her last name was calling him at 2:47 in the morning, begging for help. Mercy General's emergency entrance was chaos. Ambulances, gurneys, security guards, families clutching each other in various states of panic. Dante bypassed all of it, striding through the automatic doors with Marco a step behind, his presence parting the crowd like a knife. The nurse at the intake desk looked up, started to speak, then faltered when she met his eyes. "Isabella Cruz," Dante said. "She was brought in by ambulance. Where is she?" "Sir, I need to... Are you family? Where is she?" Something in his voice made the nurse's fingers fly across her keyboard. "Trauma Bay 2. But sir, you can't..." Dante was already moving. He found Trauma Bay 2 by the sounds. Urgent voices, the beep of monitors, the organized chaos of doctors fighting to save a life. Through the partially open door, he caught a glimpse of Isabella on the gurney, pale and unconscious, an oxygen mask over her face, IV lines running into both arms. She looked exactly the same, exactly as beautiful, exactly as, "You can't be here." The doctor blocked his path, young and stern and completely unaware of who he was dealing with. "Family only. You need to wait in..." "I'm her..." Dante stopped. What was he? An ex-lover? A ghost from her past? "Where are her daughters?" The doctor's expression shifted slightly. "The waiting room. 3rd floor. But..." Dante was already walking away. The 3rd floor waiting room was a study in fluorescent misery. Harsh lights, uncomfortable chairs, a TV playing the news on mute. A few exhausted families clustered in corners. And there, near the window, 2 small figures sat close together on a vinyl couch that was too big for them. Twin girls. Identical. Maybe 7 years old. Dark hair. Delicate features. Eyes that were... Dante's breath caught in his chest. His eyes. They had his eyes. The girls looked up as he approached, and he watched one of them, Mira he assumed, tug urgently on her sister's sleeve. The other girl, more cautious, more watchful, stood and stepped slightly in front of her twin, protective. "Are you the Mr. Mira called?" The cautious one's voice was quiet but steady. Dante knelt down slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable, devastating. They had Isabella's smile, his coloring, a blend of features that could only mean one thing, one impossible thing. "Yes," he managed. "My name is Dante. What's yours?" "Elena." She studied him with an intensity that reminded him of himself. "And you already know, Mira." Mira peeked out from behind her sister. Her eyes were red from crying, but she managed a tiny smile. "You came." "I said I would." Dante's voice sounded strange in his own ears. "Can you tell me what happened to your mother?" Elena and Mira exchanged a glance that silent communication twins seemed to share. "She's been really tired," Elena said carefully. "She works a lot, 3 jobs. Sometimes she forgets to eat because she's making sure we eat first. 3 jobs. The words hit Dante like a physical blow. "Tonight she came home late," Mira added, her voice wobbling. "She made us dinner and then she was doing laundry and she just fell down. We couldn't wake her up." "We called 911, Elena said, but Mira remembered the box." "What box?" "Mama keeps it in her closet. In the back, up high where she thinks we don't know about it. It has old pictures and stuff, and a card with your number on it." Dante's mind was reeling. Isabella had kept his number. For 7 years she'd kept it, hidden but accessible. Why? "The pictures," he heard himself say. "Were there pictures of me?" Elena nodded slowly. "You and Mama. You looked happy." The lights above seemed too bright, the walls too close. Dante couldn't breathe properly, couldn't think past the roaring in his head. These girls. These beautiful, brave, impossible girls. "How old are you?" He already knew, but he needed to hear it. 7, they said in unison. "When's your birthday?" "September 15th, Elena said. Dante closed his eyes. He'd last seen Isabella in December, 7 years and 3 months ago. The math was brutal and exact. "Mr. Dante?" Mira's small hand touched his arm. Is Mama going to be okay? He opened his eyes and looked at her, at them both, and saw his own fear reflected back. These children, who'd been taught to be brave, who'd learned to take care of themselves too young, who were trying so hard not to fall apart. His children. The truth crashed over him with the force of a tidal wave. These weren't just two girls who needed help. These were his daughters, his blood, his family. 7 years of birthdays and first days of school and lost teeth and nightmares and laughter. Gone. Stolen. Lost. And he'd had no idea they existed. I don't know yet, Dante said, forcing honesty past the fury building in his chest. But I'm going to find out. And I'm going to make sure you're both taken care of. I promise. You don't have to, Elena said quietly. We're used to taking care of ourselves. That sentence, delivered with such simple, heartbreaking acceptance, nearly broke him. Well, you don't have to anymore, Dante said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. Not alone. Not ever again. Before either girl could respond, a doctor appeared in the doorway, the same one who'd tried to stop Dante earlier. His expression was serious, but not grave. Are you with the Cruz family? Dante stood. Yes. Isabella is stable. We're admitting her for observation, but the immediate crisis has passed. She collapsed from severe exhaustion and malnutrition. Her body essentially shut down from chronic stress and lack of self-care. Malnutrition. The word made Dante's hands curl into fists. Isabella had been starving herself to feed their daughters. Can we see her? Mira asked, hope brightening her tear-stained face. The doctor hesitated. She's sleeping right now. We've sedated her to let her body rest, but in a few hours, yes. You can see her. We'll wait, Dante said. The doctor nodded and left. The twins settled back onto the couch, exhaustion finally catching up with them. Within minutes, Mira's head drooped against Elena's shoulder. Elena fought to keep her eyes open, protective even in her weariness. Dante pulled out his phone and typed a message to Marco, who'd been waiting discreetly by the elevators. Background check. Isabella Cruz. Everything from the last 7 years. And find out who helped her disappear. The response came immediately. On it, boss. Then Dante did something he hadn't done in years. He sat down on the floor beside the couch, his back against the wall, and kept watch over his sleeping daughters. Hours crawled by. The waiting room slowly emptied as families were called away, some to good news, some to grief. Dante didn't move. He watched Elena finally surrender to sleep, watched the way Mira's hand stayed clasped in her sister's, even unconscious, watched the rise and fall of their breathing. He cataloged every detail. The small scar on Elena's knee, the way Mira's hair curled slightly at the ends, the worn state of their clothes, clean but mended, cared for but clearly old. Everything about them spoke of love given by a mother who had nothing material to offer but gave everything anyway. And fury burned in Dante's chest. Not at Isabella. Not yet. He didn't understand why she'd run, why she'd hidden his children from him, but he knew her. She'd had a reason. Someone had made her afraid, and he would find out who. At 6:47 a.m. Exactly 4 hours after the first phone call, a different doctor appeared. Older, kinder eyes. Mr. Moretti? Dante's head snapped up. He hadn't given his last name, but of course, in this city, people knew who he was. The doctor's expression showed wariness, but also professional neutrality. Ms. Cruz is awake, the doctor said. She's asking for her daughters. Dante gently shook Elena's shoulder. She woke instantly, alert in a way that children shouldn't have to be. Mama's awake, he said softly. Both girls were on their feet immediately. The doctor led them through a maze of corridors to a private room. Dante had made a phone call around 4 a.m. to ensure Isabella got the best care, the best room, everything his money could buy. At the doorway, Elena hesitated. Are you coming? Dante looked past them to the figure in the hospital bed. Isabella was sitting up slightly, her dark hair tangled, her face pale, but her eyes, those eyes he'd dreamed about for 7 years, were open and aware, and locked on him with an expression of pure shock. You two go first, Dante said quietly. I'll wait. The twins rushed to their mother's bedside, careful not to jostle the IV lines, and Isabella wrapped her arms around them, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry, babies. I'm okay. I'm okay now." Over their heads, her eyes met Dante's. 7 years of questions hung in the air between them. 7 years of lies. 7 years of stolen moments with children he'd never known existed. Dante stayed in the doorway, his body a rigid line of controlled rage and confusion and grief. He didn't trust himself to speak. Not yet. Not until he understood. After several long minutes, Isabella gently untangled herself from the twins. "Elena, Mira, there are vending machines down the hall. Why don't you go get some breakfast? Here." She fumbled for her purse, but Dante was already pulling out his wallet. He handed Elena $200 bills. "Get whatever you want, both of you." Elena stared at the money like she'd never seen that much before. She probably hadn't. "It's too much," she started to say. "It's not enough," Dante said. "Not nearly. Go on." The twins left, hand in hand, glancing back multiple times. When the door finally clicked shut, the silence in the room was deafening. Isabella spoke first, her voice hoarse. "Dante, I never meant for you to find out like this." "Find out?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "You never meant for me to find out at all." "It wasn't. It's not what you think." "Then tell me." He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "Tell me why I just met my 7-year-old daughters for the first time in a hospital waiting room. Tell me why you disappeared without a word. Tell me why you let me believe you were gone when you were pregnant with my children." Tears spilled down Isabella's cheeks. "Because I thought I was protecting them." "From me?" The words tasted like poison. "From your world, from the danger, from—" She stopped, pressing her hands to her face. "It's complicated." "Uncomplicate it." Dante moved closer to the bed, his control fracturing. "I deserve to know. They deserve to have a father." "You don't understand. I didn't just leave, Dante. I was told to leave. I was made to leave." That brought him up short. "What?" Isabella lowered her hands, meeting his eyes. "Your uncle, Marcus. He came to me 2 weeks after you and after our last night together. I just found out I was pregnant. I was going to tell you that weekend." Marcus. His father's brother. One of Dante's most trusted advisors. What did he do? Dante's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "He showed me pictures. Surveillance photos of me. Of my family. My younger sister, she was only 16 then. He knew where she went to school, what time she got home, what route she walked." Isabella's voice shook. "He told me that you could never know about the baby. That a child would make you weak, that your enemies would use it against you, and that you would resent me for the vulnerability." Dante's vision blurred red at the edges. "He threatened your family. He had documents, proof, he said, that you'd ordered hits on people who'd betrayed you, people who'd been close to you. He told me that if you saw a child as a weakness, as a liability—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "So you believed I would kill my own child." The words came out hollow. "No!" Isabella's hand shot out, grabbing his. "No, Dante, I knew you. I knew your heart, but he was so convincing, and he had proof that you were capable of terrible things, things I'd chosen to ignore because I loved you, and when I found out it was twins—" She broke down completely. "I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk you deciding they were too dangerous to exist. I couldn't risk your enemies finding them, so I ran." Dante stood frozen, his hand in hers, his mind racing through 7 years in reverse. Marcus. His uncle had done this, had stolen his family, had convinced the woman he loved that he was a monster. And the worst part, the part that made Dante want to destroy everything, was that Marcus hadn't been entirely wrong. Dante had ordered those hits. He had built an empire on fear and blood. The documents weren't fabricated. The monster Marcus described was real. "Where's Marcus now?" Dante asked quietly. "I don't know. I haven't seen him since that day. Dante, please, I didn't know what else to do. I was 23 and pregnant and terrified." He pulled his hand away gently. "And for 7 years? You never once thought to reach out, to tell me the truth?" "I almost did. So many times, But then I'd see something on the news, another arrest, another investigation, another body, and I'd convince myself I'd made the right choice, that you were better off not knowing, that they were safer invisible. Safer? Dante's laugh was bitter. Isabella, they found your number in a box. They called me themselves. A 7-year-old child had to save her mother because you had no one else. You've been working 3 jobs, starving yourself, collapsing from exhaustion. That's not safe. That's not better. That's you drowning while I had the resources to... He stopped, his throat tight. I know, Isabella whispered. I know. I was wrong. I was so wrong. The door opened and the twins appeared, arms full of snacks and juice boxes. They stopped short at the tension in the room. Is everything okay? Elena asked cautiously. Dante forced his expression to soften. Yes, your mother and I are just talking. Mira climbed carefully onto the bed, settling against Isabella's side. Elena remained standing, her sharp eyes moving between the adults. Dante, Isabella said softly, can we have some time? You and I need to talk more, but right now I just want to hold my daughters. He nodded stiffly. I'll be outside. In the hallway, Dante pulled out his phone and called Marco. Tell me you found something. Working on it, boss, but I've got preliminary info. Isabella Cruz? No arrests, no warrants, clean record. She's been living in a studio apartment in Riverside. Works as a night cleaner at an office building, a weekend cashier at a grocery store, and does data entry from home. Girls are enrolled at Riverside Elementary. Honor students, both of them. And Marcus? Haven't located him yet, but I will. When you do, bring him to me, alive. I want to hear every word from his mouth before I decide what happens to him. Understood. Dante ended the call and slumped against the wall. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Doctors and nurses moved past, immersed in their own crises. He'd built an empire, commanded loyalty and fear in equal measure, made men twice his age bow to his will. And he'd missed his daughters' entire lives, first words, first steps, first days of school, every birthday, every nightmare, every moment of joy or fear or wonder. Gone. The door opened and Elena slipped out, closing it quietly behind her. Mama's asleep again, she said. Mira's with her. Dante straightened. You should get some rest too. I'm not tired. Elena walked over and studied him with that unnerving intensity. You're angry. He stopped. She deserved honesty. Yes, I'm very angry. At Mama? At the situation. At the person who lied to her. At myself for not finding her sooner. Elena nodded slowly. Mira thinks you're our dad. Dante's breath caught. What do you think? I think the math works out, and you have our eyes, and Mama looked at you like the people in those old pictures. She paused. Are you? He knelt down again, meeting her at eye level. Yes, I am your father, and I'm sorry, sorrier than you can possibly understand, that I wasn't there, that I didn't know. I would have been, if I'd known you existed. I would have been there for everything. Would you? Elena's question was simple but devastating. Mira wants a dad really bad. She pretends she doesn't, but I know. She makes up stories about you at night, about where you are and why you haven't come. I tell her it's better to just accept that it's the 3 of us, that we don't need anyone else. Elena, but maybe I was wrong. Her voice cracked slightly. Maybe Mira was right to hope. Dante reached out slowly and pulled his daughter into his arms. She stiffened for a moment, then collapsed against his chest, 7 years of trying to be strong, finally breaking. I'm here now, Dante said into her hair. And I'm not going anywhere. I promise you, both of you, I will never leave. Never. Do you understand? Elena nodded against his shirt, her small hands fisting in the fabric. They stayed like that until a nurse approached, clearing her throat apologetically. Mr. Moretti? Miss Cruz is asking for you. Dante released Elena gently. Go sit with your sister. I'll be back. Inside the room, Isabella was propped up against pillows, watching Mira sleep curled at her side. She looked fragile and fierce all at once, exactly how he remembered her. Dante, she said quietly, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. always. Do you want them? Really want them? Or do you see them as an obligation, as something you have to protect because they're yours? The question shouldn't have hurt, but it did. I just met them 4 hours ago, Dante said slowly. And in that time, I've watched them be brave and scared and protective and vulnerable. I've seen myself in Elena's eyes and you in Mira's smile. I've learned that they're smart and cautious and used to taking care of themselves. His voice roughened. And it's killing me that I missed 7 years, that I wasn't there when they needed me, that they learned to survive without a father because of lies and threats and my own reputation. He moved to the window, looking out at the city waking up below. You asked if I want them. Isabella, I didn't know I could want anything this much. They're mine, and I'm going to be their father, not because I have to, but because I already am. I've been their father since the moment they existed. I just didn't know it. Isabella was crying again, silently. What are we going to do? We're going to tell them the truth, age-appropriate but honest. They deserve that. And us? Dante turned back to her. I don't know yet. I'm angry and hurt. And I understand why you ran, but I can't forgive it yet. You took 7 years from me, from them. I know. But right now, that doesn't matter. What matters is that they're safe, that you recover, that we figure out how to be their parents together. Together, Isabella repeated softly. Did you think I'd take them from you? I don't know what I thought. You have money, power, resources. I have nothing. You have them, Dante said, and they love you. They've only ever had you. I'm not going to tear that apart. We'll find a way forward. Mira stirred, blinking awake. When she saw Dante, she smiled, small and shy and heartbreaking. Hi, she said. Hi yourself. Dante found himself smiling back. How are you feeling? Hungry? The vending machine food wasn't very good. Then we'll get you real food, whatever you want. Really? Really? The door burst open and Elena rushed in, her face pale. There are men in suits in the hallway. They're asking about Mama. Dante's expression hardened. He pulled out his phone and sent a rapid text. Within seconds, Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss, we've got a situation. Marcus is here, downstairs, says he needs to speak with you. The rage that Dante had been controlling all morning erupted like a volcano. He's here? At this hospital? Walked in 10 minutes ago. Building security contacted us when they spotted him on the cameras. Dante looked at Isabella, at the fear flooding her eyes, at the twins, confused and worried. Stay here, he ordered Marco. No one gets into this room. No one. Dante, Isabella started, I'm going to handle this, once and for all. He looked at his daughters. I'll be back. I promise. Then he was moving, striding through the hospital corridors with controlled fury. Staff scrambled out of his way. Elevators opened at his approach, as if the building itself recognized his authority. Marcus was waiting in the main lobby, looking older but still sharp in an expensive suit. He smiled when he saw Dante approaching. Nephew, I heard about the cruise woman. Thought I should... Dante's fist connected with Marcus's jaw, sending the older man sprawling across the polished floor. Security guards rushed forward, but Dante's glare stopped them cold. In this city, everyone knew better than to interfere in Moretti family business. Marcus wiped blood from his lip, his smile never wavering. I suppose I deserve that. You suppose? Dante's voice was lethal. You destroyed 7 years of my life. You threatened an innocent woman. You kept my children from me. I protected the family legacy. You were distracted, weak. That woman was making you soft. She was making me human. Dante hauled Marcus to his feet by his collar. And those children you dismissed as weakness? They're my daughters, my blood, my family. Exactly. And now your enemies know. Now you've given them a target. Then my enemies will learn what happens when they threaten what's mine. Dante's smile was cold and terrible. Starting with you. You won't kill me. I'm family. You stopped being family the moment you touched mine. Dante released him with a shove. You have 24 hours to leave this city. If I ever see you again, if you ever come near Isabella or my daughters again, I will forget you're my uncle. I will forget everything except that you tried to take them from me. Marcus straightened his suit, all pretense of civility gone. You'll regret this. Mercy makes you weak. No, Dante said. It makes me dangerous. Because now I have something worth protecting. And I will burn this entire city to ash before I let anyone threaten them again. He turned and walked away, leaving Marcus bleeding on the marble floor. When Dante returned to the hospital room, 4 floors up and 1,000 miles from the man he'd just broken, he found his daughters had fallen asleep again, Elena in the chair, Mira still curled against Isabella. Isabella looked at him with questions in her eyes. It's handled, was all Dante said. But as he settled into the chair on the other side of the bed, as he watched the 3 people who'd become his entire world in the space of one impossible night, he made a silent vow. He'd been a king of criminals, a man of violence and power. Now he would be something harder. He would be a father, and heaven help anyone who stood in his way. Isabella was discharged 3 days later with strict orders to rest, eat properly, and avoid stress, instructions that seemed almost laughable given the chaos her life had become. Dante had arranged everything with the efficiency of a man accustomed to controlling outcomes. A private room for her recovery, round-the-clock nursing care, meals prepared by a chef from one of his restaurants, and a security detail that made the hospital staff nervous. The twins had barely left her side, sleeping in the oversized recliner that Dante had brought in, sharing blankets and whispered conversations when they thought the adults weren't listening. Isabella watched them with an ache in her chest that had nothing to do with her physical condition. They were so resilient, so adaptable. They'd accepted Dante's presence with a mixture of cautious hope and protective skepticism that broke her heart. On the morning of her discharge, Dante arrived with bags from a children's clothing store, outfits in the right sizes, shoes that actually fit, jackets that weren't threadbare. Elena had studied each item with quiet intensity before nodding her approval. Mira had thrown her arms around Dante's waist in spontaneous gratitude, and Isabella had watched his expression crack open with something raw and vulnerable before he carefully returned the embrace. Now they stood in the hospital parking garage beside a black SUV that probably cost more than Isabella had earned in the past 2 years. I can't go to your house, Isabella said for the 3rd time. We have an apartment, school, routines. Your apartment is a studio with 1 bed, Dante replied calmly, where the girls sleep on a pull-out couch and you sleep in a chair. Your landlord has code violations stacked up that he's been ignoring for months. The building has no security, and the neighborhood has had 6 break-ins in the past year. How do you... She stopped. Of course he knew. He'd probably known within hours of finding them. We've been fine. You collapsed from malnutrition. That's not fine. Mama, Elena interrupted softly. Maybe we should just see his house. We don't have to stay forever. Isabella looked down at her daughter, her fierce, practical daughter, and saw the hope barely hidden in her eyes. The hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. 1 week, Isabella said finally. We'll stay 1 week while I recover. Then we discuss what comes next. Dante's jaw tightened, but he nodded. 1 week. The drive to Dante's estate took them out of the city proper and into the hills where old money-built fortresses disguised as homes. The twins pressed their faces to the windows, watching the houses grow larger and more isolated. When they finally turned through iron gates that opened automatically, Mira gasped. You live in a castle? It's just a house, Dante said, but Isabella could hear the thread of amusement in his voice. Just a house. The stone mansion sprawled across perfectly manicured grounds, with gardens and fountains and what looked like a guest house off to one side. It was beautiful and intimidating in equal measure, exactly the kind of place Isabella had fled 7 years ago. Marco met them at this front entrance, his expression carefully neutral as he helped with the bags. Inside, the foyer alone was larger than their entire apartment. Marble floors, a sweeping staircase, artwork that was probably worth more than Isabella would make in a lifetime. This is too much, she whispered to Dante. For my daughters, nothing is too much. A woman in her 60s appeared from a side hallway, her face kind and weathered. Mr. Moretti, I've prepared the east wing as you requested. Thank you, Maria. Dante turned to the twins. This is Maria. She manages the house. If you need anything, food, help, Someone to talk to. You find her. Maria smiled at the girls. I made cookies this morning, chocolate chip. Would you like some? Mira's eyes went wide. Elena glanced at Isabella for permission. The fact that her daughters had to ask permission for a cookie made Isabella want to cry. Go ahead, she said softly. Maria led the twins toward what was presumably the kitchen, leaving Isabella alone with Dante in the cavernous foyer. The East Wing has 3 bedrooms, Dante said. One for you, one for each of the girls. There's a shared bathroom and a sitting area. You'll have privacy. Dante, I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to give you space to heal. To let the girls be children instead of tiny adults worried about their mother. His voice dropped. Please, let me do this. Isabella wrapped her arms around herself. I don't know how to do this, how to be around you again, how to explain to them who you are and why you weren't there before. We tell them the truth, together, when you're ready. And if I'm never ready, then we'll figure something else out. But Isabella, they're going to ask. Elena already did. That didn't surprise her. Elena asked everything, noticed everything. It was only a matter of time before she demanded answers. What did you tell her? That I'm their father, that I didn't know about them, that I would have been there if I had. Dante's hands flexed at his sides. And that I'm here now. Before Isabella could respond, squeals of laughter echoed from deeper in the house. Mira's voice, bright with delight. The sound was so rare, so precious, that Isabella found herself following it automatically. The kitchen was enormous, all stainless steel and granite, with a center island where Maria was showing the twins how to decorate sugar cookies. Mira had frosting on her nose. Elena was carefully piping designs with intense concentration. Mama, look! Mira held up a cookie covered in pink frosting and rainbow sprinkles. I made it smile. It's beautiful, baby. Dante moved past Isabella to examine Elena's work. She'd created an intricate pattern of blue and white, almost like snowflakes. You have a steady hand, he observed. Elena didn't look up. Mama taught me to sew. You have to be careful with small stitches. You sew? We make our own clothes sometimes. It's cheaper than buying new ones. She said it matter-of-factly, without shame, but Isabella saw Dante's expression darken. Well, Maria interjected smoothly, now you can make cookies instead. We'll make a new batch every week if you'd like. Over the next few hours, Isabella watched her daughters explore their temporary home with increasing confidence. Mira loved the library, running her fingers over leather-bound spines with reverent awe. Elena was drawn to the music room, where a grand piano sat in front of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. Do you play? Dante asked when he found her standing in the doorway. No, but it's beautiful. Elena moved closer to the instrument, not quite touching it. Does it work? Yes. Would you like to learn? Elena's head snapped toward him. Really? If you want to, I'll arrange lessons. That's... Elena stopped, her expression shuddering. You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to. I want to. Isabella watched the exchange from the hallway, her throat tight. This was what she'd feared. Dante sweeping in with his resources and his money, giving the girls everything she couldn't. But the look on Elena's face wasn't about the piano or the lessons. It was about being seen, being valued, being offered something just because she wanted it. That night, after the twins were settled in their new rooms with actual beds and dressers and space to move, Isabella found Dante in his study. He was on the phone, speaking in low, clipped tones that suggested business she didn't want to know about. When he saw her, he ended the call immediately. Can't sleep? He asked. Strange bed. Strange house. Isabella moved into the room, taking in the dark wood and leather furniture. This suits you, all of it. Does it bother you? It terrifies me. She sank into one of the chairs facing his desk. I spent 7 years teaching them to be grateful for what we had, to not want more because we couldn't afford more. And now they're here, surrounded by wealth, and I can already see them starting to hope. Hope isn't a bad thing. It is when it gets taken away. Yes, Isabella met his eyes. What happens when the weekends, Dante? When we go back to our life and they remember what it was like here? Maybe you don't go back. We can't stay here forever. Why not? The question hung in the air between them. Isabella stood, pacing to the window. Outside, security lights illuminated the grounds. She could see Marco and another guard doing rounds. "Because this isn't real," she said finally. "This is a fantasy, a beautiful, temporary fantasy. Our real life is that studio apartment and 3 jobs and stretching every dollar until it screams. It doesn't have to be." "Yes, it does. Because I won't be kept, Dante. I won't be some mistress you house out of obligation while you go back to your empire and your violence and is that what you think this is?" Dante was suddenly standing, his voice sharp. "You think I'm offering you charity? Aren't you? I'm offering you a chance to stop drowning, to let our daughters have childhoods instead of responsibilities. To—" He stopped, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not trying to own you, Isabella. I'm trying to take care of you. There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like control with a prettier name." Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just short of touching her. "7 years ago, I would have given you anything, everything. I was planning to ask you to move in with me, to build a life together. And then you were gone, and I thought—" His voice cracked. "I thought you'd left because you finally saw what I really was. A criminal, a killer, someone you couldn't love." "I never stopped loving you," Isabella whispered. That was the problem. The admission hung between them, fragile and dangerous. "Then help me understand," Dante said. "Help me understand how to do this, how to be their father without making you feel trapped, how to give them what they need without taking away your independence." Before Isabella could answer, a scream split the night. They both ran, Dante reaching Mira's room first. He found her sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face, Elena already at her side trying to soothe her. "Just a nightmare," Elena said quickly. "She gets them sometimes." "Shh, baby, I'm here." Isabella climbed onto the bed, gathering Mira into her arms. "You're safe." "There was a man," Mira sobbed. "A bad man. He was trying to take us away from you." Isabella's blood ran cold. She looked at Dante over Mira's head and saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. "No one is taking you anywhere," Dante said firmly. He sat on the edge of the bed, his presence solid and grounding. "I promise you, Mira. You and your sister are safe here." "But what about when we leave?" Mira's voice was small. "What about when we go back home?" "We'll figure that out," Isabella said. "But right now, you need to sleep." It took another hour to settle Mira back down. Elena refused to go back to her own room, curling up instead at the foot of Mira's bed like a guardian. Isabella sat in the chair beside them, keeping watch until their breathing evened out into sleep. Dante had disappeared during the settling process, but when Isabella finally emerged into the hallway, she found him waiting. "Nightmares," he said quietly. "How often?" 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes more." "About what?" Isabella hesitated. "Losing me. Being separated. Being alone." She paused. "Your uncle visited us, once, about 3 years ago." Dante went very still. "What?" "He found us somehow, showed up at the apartment while the girls were at school, said he was checking to make sure we were keeping our end of the bargain, that we weren't trying to contact you." Isabella's hands trembled. "He never threatened them directly, but the implication was clear. As long as we stayed hidden, stayed silent, they were safe." "And you believed him?" "What choice did I have? I was alone, Dante. Alone with 2 little girls in a city where your name opens every door and closes every escape route. So yes, I believed him. And I kept them hidden. And I worked myself to exhaustion, making sure we could survive without asking anyone for help." Dante's expression was carved from stone. "He's gone. I exiled him from the city 3 days ago. He won't come back." "Well, you can't know that." "Yes, I can, because I made it very clear what would happen if he did." His voice was cold enough to freeze blood. "He won't risk it." Isabella wanted to believe him, but 7 years of fear didn't disappear in 3 days. "The girls," she said instead, "they need stability. Routine. Not this." She gestured at the opulent hallway. "Whatever this is. Then we'll create stability. Here. With me. For how long? Until the next crisis? Until someone else threatens them because they're connected to you?" "That's not—" "It is fair," Isabella interrupted, "because it's the truth. Being your daughter makes them targets. You know that. I know that. And if we stay, if we let them get comfortable here, we're just painting bigger bullseyes on their backs. Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured and deliberate. You're right. Being connected to me is dangerous. But being invisible didn't keep you safe either. Marcus still found you. And what happens the next time you collapse? What happens when the girls are older and start asking questions about their father? When they go looking on their own? I would have told them eventually. When? When they were 18? When they hated you for lying to them their entire lives? He moved closer. Elena already knows something isn't right. She's too smart not to see it. And Mira, she's dreaming about men taking her away. They're not safe in ignorance, Isabella. They're just unprepared. The truth of his words hit like a physical blow. Isabella sank against the wall, exhaustion and emotion finally overwhelming her. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I don't know how to share them. I don't know how to trust that you won't what? Won't decide that I'm the problem, that they'd be better off without me. You have lawyers, Dante, power. You could take them and I couldn't stop you. Understanding dawned in his eyes. That's what you're afraid of. Not that I'll hurt them, that I'll take them. Isabella couldn't speak past the knot in her throat. Dante knelt in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. I will never take them from you. Never. You are their mother. They love you. They need you. And despite everything, despite the anger and the hurt, and the 7 years we can't get back, I still... He stopped, struggling with words. You're theirs, and that makes you untouchable. Do you understand? A sob escaped before Isabella could stop it. 7 years of holding everything together, of being strong, of never breaking, it all cracked open in that moment. Dante pulled her into his arms, and she let him. Let herself be held for the first time in longer than she could remember. Let herself be weak. We'll figure this out, he murmured into her hair. Together. For them. But Isabella, you have to trust me. At least a little. At least enough to let me help. She nodded against his chest, not trusting her voice. They stayed like that until Isabella's breathing steadied, until the tears stopped, until the fear receded enough to think clearly again. 1 week, she said finally, pulling back. We stick to the plan. 1 week for me to recover. Then we sit down with the girls and tell them everything. Age appropriate, but honest. And then we figure out what comes next. Agreed. The following days developed a rhythm. Mornings were for the girls. Breakfast together in the sunny kitchen, Maria teaching them to cook simple dishes, laughter that had been too rare in their old life. Dante appeared for breakfast each day, always in a suit, always on his way to business. He never discussed in detail. But he always took time to ask about their plans, to listen to Mira's excited chatter about the book she was reading from the library, to notice when Elena was quieter than usual. Isabella watched these interactions with a mixture of wonder and terror. Dante was good with them, patient, attentive. He never talked down to them or dismissed their concerns. When Elena asked direct questions about his work, he answered honestly but carefully. I run businesses, he told her. Some of them are complicated. Some of them involve difficult decisions. Are you a bad guy? Elena asked bluntly. Dante considered the question seriously. I've done bad things. Things I'm not proud of. But I'm trying to be better. Especially now. Because of us? Because you deserve better than the man I was. It was the right answer. Isabella could see it in the way Elena's shoulders relaxed slightly, in the way she nodded and went back to her book without pressing further. On the 4th day, a woman arrived at the house with bags of new clothes, entire wardrobes for both girls. Isabella started to protest, but Dante cut her off. Their shoes have holes, Isabella. Their jackets don't fit. This isn't about money. It's about basic needs. The twins tried on outfit after outfit, parading through the sitting room like it was a fashion show. Mira twirled in a blue dress, giggling. Elena held up a pair of jeans and a sweater, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes bright. You look beautiful, Isabella told them, fighting back tears. Both of you. That night, after the girls were asleep, Dante found Isabella in the library. She was curled up in one of the leather chairs, a book unopened in her lap. Thank you, she said before he could speak. For the clothes, for everything. You don't have to thank me for taking care of my daughters. I do. Because for 7 years I couldn't give them this. Any of this. Dante sat in the chair across from her. You gave them something more important. You gave them love, security, you. Everything I'm giving them is material. What you gave them is the foundation of who they are. Pretty words from a crime boss. True words from their father. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the weight of the week settling over them. Tomorrow would mark 5 days. 3 more until the promised conversation. 3 more until decisions had to be made. I've been thinking, Isabella said slowly, about what happens after. And? The girls need stability, school, friends, a normal life as much as possible. She paused. But they also need you. I can see that now. The way Mira lights up when you walk into a room. The way Elena watches you like she's trying to figure out if you're real or if you'll disappear. I'm not disappearing. Then we need to find a way to make this work. Some kind of arrangement that gives them both parents without, she gestured vaguely, without whatever this is between us complicating things. And what is this between us? Isabella met his eyes. I don't know. 7 years ago, it was love. Now it's complicated and messy, and I don't have the energy to figure it out while trying to be a good mother. Fair enough. Dante leaned forward, his expression serious. What if I told you I have a proposal? A way to give the girls stability and keep you independent? I'm listening. There's a house, smaller than this, but still secure, in a good neighborhood near an excellent school. It has 4 bedrooms, a yard, enough space for the girls to grow. I bought it 2 years ago as an investment. He paused. Move in. You and the girls. No rent, no strings. Just a safe place to live. Isabella stiffened. I can't. Before you refuse, hear me out. You get your independence. Your own space. The girls get stability and security. And I get to be part of their lives. I'll help with school, activities, whatever they need. But you make the rules. You decide how involved I am. That's still charity, Dante. No, it's co-parenting. It's me providing for my children and their mother. If the situation were reversed, if I'd been the one raising them alone, would you help? The question was pointed. Isabella thought about it honestly. Yes. Then let me help. Not because you need me to, not because you owe me, but because they deserve it. And so do you. Isabella stood, moving to the window. The grounds were dark beyond the glass, security lights creating pools of illumination. Somewhere out there was the world she'd navigated alone for 7 years. And here, in this house, was the life she'd run from. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. On the 6th day, Elena came to Isabella with a question. Is Dante our father? They were in the sitting room of the East Wing, Mira absorbed in coloring at the coffee table. Isabella had known this was coming, had prepared herself for it, but the directness still stole her breath. Yes, she said simply. He is. Elena nodded, processing. Why didn't you tell us before? It's complicated, sweetheart. I'm 7, not stupid. Isabella pulled Elena down to sit beside her on the couch. You're right. You deserve the truth. She chose her words carefully. When I found out I was pregnant with you and your sister, some people told me that being with Dante would be dangerous, that it would put you at risk. So I left, thinking I was protecting you. But you weren't. I was protecting you from some things, but I also kept you from having a father who would have loved you, who does love you. Isabella brushed Elena's hair back from her face. I made the best choice I could with the information I had, but I hurt all 3 of you in the process. Does he know? That he's our dad? He does now. He didn't before. That was my fault too. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Mira really wants him to be our dad. Like, really wants it. What do you want? I don't know yet. He seems nice, but people can seem nice and not be. The wisdom in that statement broke Isabella's heart. You're right, and you don't have to decide right now. You can take your time figuring out how you feel. But we're going to see him? After we leave here? Yes. We'll figure out a way for you to spend time with him, to get to know him properly. Elena nodded, seemingly satisfied. Then, casually, I think you should say yes to the house. You what? I heard you and Dante talking in the library. Sound carries in big houses. Elena shrugged. The house sounds nice, and Mira would like having her own room. So would I. Elena, you're scared he's going to control us or something. But I don't think he will. I think he's just trying to make up for not being there before. Elena looked at her mother with those two old eyes. And I think you're tired, Mama. You should let him help. Out of the mouths of children. Isabella pulled her daughter close, overwhelmed by love and guilt in equal measure. That evening, she found Dante in his study again. The house, she said without preamble. I want to see it. Dante looked up from his laptop, surprise flickering across his face. When? Tomorrow. Before we have the conversation with the girls, I want to know what I'm agreeing to. Of course, I'll take you in the morning. The house was in a neighborhood Isabella had driven through before, but never imagined living in. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained homes, children playing in yards. Dante's SUV pulled up in front of a two-story colonial with pale blue shutters and a wraparound porch. It needs some work, Dante said as they walked up the front path. But the bones are good. Inside, Isabella moved through rooms filled with afternoon sunlight, hardwood floors, a kitchen with modern appliances, a living room with a fireplace. Upstairs, 4 bedrooms, one that would be perfect for the girls to share until they were old enough to want their own spaces, and a master bedroom with windows overlooking a backyard complete with an old oak tree, perfect for climbing. There's a park 2 blocks away, Dante said, and the elementary school is rated one of the best in the state. 10-minute drive. Isabella stood in what would be her bedroom, imagining a life here, imagining the girls running through these halls, imagining holidays and homework, and normal, mundane moments she'd never been able to give them. What's the catch? She asked. No catch. You live here. I help with expenses. We share custody of the girls. Legally? If you want. Or we can keep it informal. Whatever makes you comfortable. Isabella turned to face him. And us? What are we in this scenario? Co-parents? Friends, if we can manage it. Anything more? He paused. That would be up to you, if and when you're ready. The honesty in his answer decided it. Okay. Okay? We'll take the house. Under certain conditions. Isabella held up a hand, ticking off fingers. 1. I pay utilities. I need to contribute something. 2. The girls don't know you own it. As far as they're concerned, I'm renting it. 3. We establish clear boundaries about custody, decisions, all of it. In writing. Agreed. And 4. You keep your business, whatever it really is, away from us. Completely away. Dante's expression shuddered slightly. I can't promise they'll never know what I do, but I can promise I'll protect them from it as much as possible. It would have to be enough. That night, Isabella and Dante sat the twins down in the library. Elena sat straight and watchful. Mira curled into Isabella's side, sensing the weight of the moment. We need to talk to you both about something important, Isabella began, about Dante and about our family. He's our dad, Elena said flatly. We already know. Mira's head popped up. He is? Yes, Dante said gently. I am, and I'm sorry I wasn't there before. Your mother and I, we got separated a long time ago, before you were born, and I didn't know about you until last week. But you know now, Mira said. So you'll stay? Yes, I'll stay. I'll be part of your lives for as long as you want me. Forever? Mira's voice was hopeful. Forever, Dante confirmed. They spent the next hour answering questions as honestly as they could. Why did Isabella leave? Because she thought she was protecting them. Why didn't she tell Dante? Because she was afraid. Were they going to live together? No, but they would see Dante often. Elena took it all in silently, processing. Mira asked 100 questions, each one more enthusiastic than the last. Finally, Isabella told them about the house, about the new neighborhood, the new school, the fresh start. Will Dante visit? Mira asked. As much as you want him to, Isabella said. Every day, Isabella looked at Dante. He raised an eyebrow, leaving the decision to her. We'll figure out a schedule, she said. But yes, you'll see him a lot. That seemed to satisfy them both. Later, After the girls were asleep and the house was quiet, Isabella found Dante on the back terrace. He was staring out at the dark grounds, lost in thought. "Thank you," she said, joining him, "for letting me take the lead in there. They're your daughters first. I'm still earning my place." "Our daughters. And you're doing fine." They stood in comfortable silence, the weight of the week and all its revelations settling over them. "This is going to be complicated," Isabella said. "Most things worth doing are. And if it doesn't work, if the girls get hurt then we adjust. We keep trying. We don't give up." Dante turned to look at her. 7 years ago, I lost you because I didn't fight hard enough. I accepted your disappearance. I won't make that mistake again, with you or with them." Isabella's breath caught. "Dante, I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm just telling you, I'm here for all of you, for as long as you'll let me be." The moon hung low over the grounds, casting silver light across the gardens. Somewhere in the house, their daughters slept safely. And for the first time in 7 years, Isabella felt the possibility of something beyond survival, maybe even hope. The move happened 2 weeks later on a Saturday morning that felt like stepping into a different life. Dante had arranged for movers to pack up their studio apartment, what little there was to pack, while simultaneously furnishing the new house with everything they'd need. Isabella had protested initially, but Dante had simply asked if she wanted to spend her limited energy arguing or making sure the girls' transition went smoothly. She'd chosen the latter. Now she stood in the kitchen of the Blue Colonial, watching through the window as Dante helped the twins explore the backyard. Mira was already climbing the oak tree, despite Elena's warnings to be careful, her laughter carrying on the spring breeze. Dante stood beneath, arms outstretched, ready to catch her if she fell. "They've never had a yard before," Isabella said quietly to Maria, who'd insisted on coming to help them settle in. "Then they'll make up for lost time." Maria smiled as she organized dishes in the cabinets. "Mr. Moretti had the tree inspected, made sure all the branches were safe, had the whole yard checked for hazards." Of course he had. Dante approached fatherhood with the same meticulous attention to detail he probably applied to running his empire. Nothing left to chance. Every risk assessed and mitigated. The thought should have comforted her. Instead, it highlighted how much she'd been unable to provide on her own. "Stop that," Maria said, reading her expression with unnerving accuracy. "Stop what?" "Beating yourself up. You kept those girls safe and loved for 7 years alone. That's not nothing. But look at what I couldn't give them. This house, security, a father." Maria paused in her work, turning to face Isabella fully. "You gave them yourself. Everything else is just furniture and square footage. Don't diminish what you did by measuring it against what you couldn't do." Before Isabella could respond, the back door burst open and Mira rushed in, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mama, there's a swing set, a real one, and Dante says we can get a sandbox too if we want." "We'll see," Isabella started, but Mira was already dragging her toward the door. Outside, Elena had climbed down from the tree and was examining the swing set with her characteristic caution, testing the chains and seats before committing to actually using it. Dante caught Isabella's eye and shrugged, a smile playing at his lips. "I may have gone overboard," he admitted when she reached him. "May have. They're only young once. I've already missed 7 years of birthdays and Christmases. Let me have this." It was hard to argue with that logic, especially when Mira launched herself onto a swing and started pumping her legs with pure joy. Elena eventually joined her, the two of them creating a rhythm, seeing who could swing higher. "I have to go into the office for a few hours," Dante said quietly, "but I'll be back for dinner if that's all right. I thought we could order pizza, let the girls pick whatever they want." "You don't have to ask permission to see them." "Yes, I do. This is your home, your space. I'm the guest here." Isabella studied his face, seeing the careful boundaries he was trying to establish. "Tuesday and Thursday evenings, and Saturday afternoons. Those can be standing times if you want, and we'll figure out the rest as we go." "That works?" Dante hesitated. "And if something comes up, school events, emergencies, anything, you'll call me?" "I will." He nodded, satisfied. Then raising his voice, "Elena, Mira, I have to leave for a bit, but I'll be back tonight." Both girls stopped swinging. Mira jumped off mid-arc, stumbling slightly when she landed, and ran over to throw her arms around Dante's waist. "You promise?" "I promise." Elena approached more slowly, stopping a few feet away. You'll bring the piano teacher information? Dante had arranged for Elena to start lessons the following week. Already in my car. I'll leave it with your mom. Okay, bye, Dante. There was still formality in how she addressed him, still distance in her posture, but she'd said goodbye. That was progress. After Dante left, Isabella spent the afternoon unpacking boxes and trying to make the house feel like home. The girls decorated their room. They'd chosen to share for now, despite having the option of separate spaces, with the few possessions they'd accumulated over the years. Worn stuffed animals, books from library sales, the drawings and crafts they'd made in school. It looked sparse in the large bedroom, these meager belongings spread across new furniture in a space 3 times the size of their old apartment. But the twins didn't seem to notice. They arranged everything with care, creating a space that was theirs. That evening, as promised, Dante returned with pizza from 3 different restaurants because he wasn't sure what kind they'd like. They ended up with pepperoni, vegetarian, and something called a margarita that Mira declared was fancy cheese bread. They ate in the dining room, the 4 of them around a table built for 8, and it should have felt awkward. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something. Mira chattered about the tree and the swings. Elena asked Dante questions about the neighborhood, the school, whether there was a library nearby. And Isabella watched her daughters slowly, cautiously, let this man into their world. After dinner, Dante helped with dishes despite Isabella's protests. The girls had gone upstairs to get ready for bed, their voices drifting down through the old house. Thank you, Isabella said, drying a plate, for all of this. The house, the furniture, the swing set, everything. You keep thanking me. I wish you'd stop. Why? Because it makes it sound like I'm doing you a favor instead of just being their father. Isabella set the plate down. It's going to take me time to adjust to this, to trust that you're not going to what? I don't know. Disappear. Decide this is too hard. Realize that being a father to 2 7-year-olds doesn't fit with whatever else you have going on in your life. Dante turned off the water, his expression serious. I'm not going anywhere, and I know you don't believe that yet, but I'll prove it every day for as long as it takes. The intensity in his voice made Isabella's breath catch. Before she could respond, footsteps thundered down the stairs and Mira appeared in the doorway, clutching a book. Will you read to us? She asked Dante. Mama always reads before bed, but we have 2 new books, and she can't read both at the same time. Dante looked at Isabella, seeking permission. She nodded. I'd love to, he said. Isabella followed them upstairs, watching as Dante settled into the chair between the twin beds while the girls climbed under their covers. He read with unexpected expressiveness, doing voices for different characters, making Mira giggle and even coaxing a smile from Elena. When the story ended, he stood to leave, but Mira caught his hand. Can you stay until we fall asleep, like Mama does? If your mother says it's okay. It's fine, Isabella said softly. She left him there, sitting in the dimly lit room while the twins drifted off, and went downstairs to finish cleaning up. 20 minutes later, Dante appeared in the kitchen. They're both out, he said. Mira made me promise to be here tomorrow when she wakes up. And will you be? If you'll let me, yes. Isabella leaned against the counter, exhaustion finally catching up with her. This is strange. All of it. A month ago, I was working 3 jobs and barely keeping us afloat. Now we're living in this house, and you're reading bedtime stories, and it feels like what? Like it's too good to be real, like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Dante moved closer, his expression gentle. The only shoe dropping is me showing up consistently. Being here. Being their father. I know it's an adjustment, but Isabella, you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. I don't know how to not carry everything alone. Then let me teach you. The words hung between them, heavy with possibility and fear. Before Isabella could respond, her phone rang. An unknown number. She answered hesitantly. Is this Isabella Cruz? Yes. Who is this? This is Principal Matthews from Riverside Elementary. I'm calling about your daughter's enrollment records. We need to schedule a transfer meeting before they can start at their new school. Right, the school. In the chaos of moving, Isabella had forgotten about the administrative details. Of course, when would work? They scheduled a meeting for Monday morning. After Isabella hung up, she found Dante watching her with a questioning expression. The school, she explained. I need to handle the transfer paperwork. I'll come with you. You don't have to. Isabella. His voice was firm. I'm their father. I should be part of this. She wanted to argue, to maintain the independence she'd guarded so fiercely for 7 years. But the truth was, she was tired. And having backup, having someone to share the burden, sounded less like weakness and more like relief. Okay, she said finally. Monday at 9. The weekend passed in a blur of domestic normalcy that felt surreal. Saturday afternoon, Dante took the girls to a park while Isabella had a few hours to herself, the first in recent memory. She spent it unpacking, organizing, trying to make the house feel like theirs. Sunday morning, they all went to a farmer's market, the twins delighted by the abundance of fresh fruit and baked goods. Dante carried Mira on his shoulders when she got tired, and Isabella caught Elena watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Dante picked them up at 8:30, and they drove to Riverside Elementary to meet with Principal Matthews. The school was small and warm, with colorful artwork lining the hallways and a playground visible through the windows. Principal Matthews was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She welcomed them into her office and pulled out the twins' records. Elena and Mira have excellent grades, she said, reviewing the files. Both are reading above grade level, strong in mathematics. Their previous teachers have nothing but positive things to say. They work hard, Isabella said, pride evident in her voice. I can see that. Principal Matthews looked up. I also see that until now you've been listed as the sole guardian, Ms. Cruz. Are we adding Mr. Moretti to their emergency contacts? Yes, Dante said before Isabella could respond. And I'd like to be notified of any school events, parent-teacher conferences, anything involving the girls. Principal Matthews made notes. We'll need some additional paperwork from you then. Proof of address, identification, that sort of thing. She paused. We're very excited to have the girls joining us. We have a strong arts program that I think Elena will enjoy, and our library is quite extensive for Mira. They spent another 30 minutes handling logistics. When they finally left, the twins officially enrolled to start the following Monday, Isabella felt a weight lift from her shoulders. One more thing settled, one more piece of stability secured. That wasn't so bad, Dante said as they drove back to the house. No, it wasn't. See, co-parenting. We can do this. Isabella wanted to believe him. But a week later, reality delivered its first real test. It was Thursday evening, one of Dante's scheduled times with the girls. He'd taken them to his house for dinner and a movie, promising to have them back by 8:30. At 9 o'clock, Isabella's phone rang. We're going to be a little late, Dante said, his voice tight with controlled tension. How late? I'm not sure. There's a situation I need to handle. Marco is here. The girls are safe, but I need maybe another hour. Every instinct Isabella had developed over 7 years of hypervigilance started screaming. What kind of situation? Nothing that affects them. Just business I need to take care of. Dante, I'll explain when I get there. I promise. They're safe. He hung up before she could argue. Isabella spent the next hour pacing the living room, her imagination running wild. What kind of situation? What business? Was this the beginning of exactly what she'd feared? His world bleeding into theirs? When Dante's SUV finally pulled into the driveway at 10:15, Isabella was out the door before he'd even turned off the engine. The twins were asleep in the back seat. Dante got out slowly, and in the porch light, Isabella could see his jaw was tight, his expression harder than she'd seen since the hospital. What happened? She demanded quietly. Let me get them to bed first. Then we'll talk. Together they carried the sleeping girls inside and up to their room. Dante handled Mira with practiced care now, tucking her in and brushing hair back from her face before following Isabella back downstairs. In the living room, Isabella crossed her arms and waited. There was a problem at one of my properties, Dante said carefully. A situation that required my immediate attention. I couldn't leave until it was resolved. What kind of problem? The kind I promised to keep away from them. And I did. They were at my house with Marco and Maria. They watched their movie. They had no idea anything was wrong. But something was wrong. Wrong enough that you couldn't keep your word about bringing them home on time. Dante's hands flexed at his sides. Yes. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Your business, whatever it really is, interfering with them, with us. It won't happen again. You can't promise that. I can, and I am. Dante moved closer, his voice dropping. Tonight was an anomaly, an emergency I had to handle personally, but I've already made changes to ensure it doesn't happen again. I'm delegating more, stepping back from day-to-day operations, putting systems in place so that when I'm with the girls, I'm with them, completely. Isabella wanted to believe him, but fear had sharp teeth. And if another emergency comes up, if someone threatens them because they're connected to you, that's why I have Marco. That's why there's security on this house that you don't even see. That's why I'm doing everything in my power to make sure my world never touches theirs. But it will touch them, eventually. They're going to figure out what you are, what you do. I know. Dante's voice was rough. And when that time comes, we'll handle it together. But right now, they're 7. Right now, they just need a father who shows up and keeps his promises. You broke your promise tonight. The words hit him like a physical blow. Isabella could see it in the way his shoulders tightened, the way his jaw clenched. You're right, he said finally. I did, and I'll apologize to them tomorrow. But Isabella, I'm trying. I'm learning how to balance this. How to be what they need and still handle the responsibilities I can't just walk away from. Maybe you should walk away. From the business. From whatever it is that creates emergencies that keep you from your daughters. Dante laughed, but there was no humor in it. It's not that simple. Why not? Because the business isn't just transactions and paperwork. It's people, employees, families who depend on the income, agreements and alliances that keep a very delicate balance in this city. I can't just walk away without consequences. Then maybe you need to choose them or the Empire. The ultimatum hung in the air between them. Dante's expression went cold. Don't ask me to choose between my daughters and everything I've built. That's not fair. Nothing about this situation is fair. Isabella's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. I'm trying to give them a normal life while their father runs an organization that apparently has emergencies requiring his personal attention at 9 o'clock at night. I told you what I am. I've never hidden it. No, you haven't. But I'm realizing now that I don't actually know what that means. What you do. How dangerous it is. How much it's going to affect our daughters. Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. You're right. You don't know. And maybe it's time you did. What does that mean? It means tomorrow, I'll show you exactly what my business is, what I do. And then you can make an informed decision about whether you want me in their lives or not. Isabella's stomach dropped. Dante, no. You want to know? You'll know. Saturday. I'll pick you up at noon. Maria will watch the girls. He moved toward the door. And Isabella? After tomorrow, you don't get to throw my business in my face without understanding what you're actually talking about. He left before she could respond, the door closing with controlled gentleness that was somehow worse than if he'd slammed it. Isabella stood in the empty living room, her heart pounding. What had she just agreed to? What was she going to see? And more terrifying, what if, after seeing it, she couldn't let him near their daughters anymore? Saturday arrived, with Isabella's nerves stretched to breaking. She'd barely slept, her mind conjuring images from movies and television, violence, drugs, things she couldn't reconcile with the man who read bedtime stories and pushed swings. Dante arrived exactly at noon, his expression unreadable. The twins hugged him goodbye, oblivious to the tension. Maria had planned an afternoon of baking and art projects, promising to keep them thoroughly entertained. In the car, silence stretched between them. Dante drove with focused intensity, navigating through the city toward the waterfront. They pulled up to a massive warehouse complex, the kind that had probably been industrial once, but was clearly something else now. Where are we? Isabella asked. One of my primary operations. You wanted to see what I do. This is it. He led her inside through a side entrance, past security guards who nodded respectfully. The interior had been converted into what looked like a logistics center. Rows of computers, people working at stations, organized chaos that seemed more like a tech company than whatever illegal operation Isabella had imagined. This is a distribution hub, Dante explained. We coordinate shipments, manage inventory, handle customs paperwork. For what? Imported goods. Electronics primarily, but also textiles, auto parts, specialty foods. All legal, all documented. Isabella stared at the operation. This is your criminal empire? This is one of my legitimate businesses. I have 17 others like it across the city and surrounding areas. They employ over 3,000 people collectively. He led her through the warehouse, introducing her to managers and supervisors, showing her spreadsheets and customs forms and business licenses. Everything appeared clean, legal, normal. I don't understand, Isabella said finally. If this is all legitimate, come with me. Dante took her to an office overlooking the warehouse floor. He closed the door and pulled out a file. This is what I am, what I really am. The file contained documents, photographs, news clippings. Isabella read through them slowly, her understanding shifting. Dante's businesses were legitimate, but they'd been built on a foundation that wasn't. Years ago, he'd inherited his father's organization, one that had dealt in protection rackets, illegal gambling, less savory enterprises. He'd spent the better part of a decade transitioning everything into legal operations, paying off old debts, severing dangerous ties. I'm not clean, Dante said quietly. My past isn't clean. There are still people who remember what my father was, what I was. There are still rivals who see me as competition, even though I've gone legitimate. There are still threats because of who I used to be. And last Thursday, one of my old rivals tried to muscle in on one of my shipping contracts, sent people to intimidate my workers. I had to handle it personally because if I'd shown weakness, if I'd let it slide, it would have opened the door for more. How did you handle it? I made it very clear that my businesses are off limits, and I had documentation proving that any interference would result in legal action backed by some very expensive lawyers. He paused. I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't threaten violence. I just reminded them that I have resources they don't want to fight against. Isabella sank into a chair, processing. So, you don't. I haven't been involved in anything illegal in almost 5 years. I pay my taxes. I follow regulations. I run legitimate businesses. Dante leaned against the desk. But I can't erase my past, and I can't make people forget who my father was. So yes, sometimes situations arise. Sometimes I have to deal with people who still see me as what I used to be. Does it put the girls at risk? I have a security team that makes sure it doesn't. I have protocols, systems. I've built walls between my past and my present specifically to protect the people I care about. Isabella looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who'd transformed an empire built on fear into something legitimate, at the father who read bedtime stories and went to school meetings, at the complicated, contradictory reality of who he actually was. I was so scared, she admitted. I've spent 7 years being scared of you, of what you might be, what you might do. And now? Now I'm realizing that the man I was afraid of doesn't exist, or at least he's not the whole picture. She stood, moving to the window that overlooked the warehouse floor. You're trying to be better, to be someone your daughters can respect. I am, but I need you to understand something. Dante moved to stand beside her. I will always have enemies, people who remember the old days, people who want what I have. I can minimize the risk, but I can't eliminate it entirely. I know. And you're okay with that? Isabella thought about the past month, about watching Dante with the twins, about the way he'd kept every promise except one, and the way he'd owned that failure, about the legitimate business he'd built and the effort he was making to be present. I'm not okay with it, she said honestly, but I'm choosing to trust you anyway, because the girls need you, and because... She stopped, the admission catching in her throat. Because what? Because maybe I need you too, not to take care of me, but to share this with, to have someone who understands what it means to want to give them everything. Dante's hand found hers, his fingers threading through hers with gentle certainty. I'll keep them safe. I promise you that. I believe you. They stood like that for a long moment, watching the organized chaos below. Then Dante's phone buzzed. He checked it and smiled. Maria sent a photo. The girls made cookies. Very decorated cookies. Isabella leaned over to see the image. Elena and Mira holding up creations covered in frosting and sprinkles, their faces streaked with chocolate, grins wide and genuine. "We should get back," she said, "before they eat all the evidence." On the drive home, the tension that had hung between them for days finally eased. They talked about schedules, about Elena's upcoming piano lessons, about Mira's request for a library card at the local branch. Normal things, parent things. When they arrived at the house, the twins rushed out to greet them, dragging them inside to see the cookies and the paintings they'd created. Dante admired every creation with genuine interest, and Isabella watched him navigate fatherhood with increasing confidence. That night, after Dante had read stories and said goodnight, after the girls were asleep and the house was quiet, he found Isabella in the kitchen making tea. "Thank you," he said, "for coming today, for listening. Thank you for showing me, for being honest. Always. No more secrets." Isabella nodded, then surprised them both by moving closer and taking his hand. "I was thinking, Tuesday and Thursday evenings, Saturday afternoons, that's not enough. Not really, not if we're doing this properly. What are you suggesting? Sunday dinners, here, all of us. A standing thing. I'd like that. And maybe," Isabella hesitated, "maybe sometimes you could pick them up from school or help with homework. The regular stuff." "The regular stuff," was, Dante repeated, his smile soft. "I'd love nothing more." They stood in the warm kitchen, hands linked, and Isabella felt something shift. Not love, not yet, but maybe the possibility of it. The foundation of trust that love could build on. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Inside, their daughters slept peacefully. And for the first time since that midnight phone call had changed everything, Isabella felt like they might actually figure this out. Like they might actually become a family. The doll arrived on a Tuesday. It had been 6 weeks since they'd moved into the blue colonial house. 6 weeks of carefully constructed normalcy that Isabella had started to believe might actually last. The girls were thriving at their new school. Elena had joined the art club. Mira had made 3 best friends who came over for playdates that filled the house with laughter. Dante visited 4 times a week, always calling first, always respecting the boundaries they'd established. He'd started teaching Mira to play chess. He'd enrolled Elena in piano lessons, with a teacher who said she had natural talent. They were building something. Fragile, yes. Complicated, absolutely. But real. And then the doll arrived. Isabella found it on the front porch when she came home from the grocery store, a plain cardboard box with no return address. She almost didn't open it. They got packages all the time now, things Dante sent for the girls, books and games and little surprises. But something about this box felt wrong. The weight of it, the silence. She opened it in the kitchen while the girls were upstairs doing homework. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a porcelain doll. Beautiful craftsmanship, delicate features, dark hair styled in 2 braids. It was dressed in a school uniform identical to the ones Elena and Mira wore, and it had been decapitated, the head placed carefully beside the body, both nestled in red tissue paper that looked too much like blood. Isabella's scream brought the girls running. "Mama, what's—" Elena stopped in the doorway, her face draining of color when she saw the box. Mira started crying immediately. "Upstairs, now!" Isabella's voice came out sharp and terrified. "Both of you, lock your door. Don't come out until I say." For once, Elena didn't argue. She grabbed Mira's hand and ran. Isabella's hand shook as she pulled out her phone and dialed Dante's number. He answered on the first ring. "Isabella, what's wrong?" "Someone sent a package, a doll. It's... Dante, it looks like the girls and it's been..." She couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm 10 minutes away. Don't touch anything else. Lock the doors. Where are Elena and Mira?" "Upstairs, in their room." "Good. Keep them there. I'm calling Marco. There'll be a security team at your house in 5 minutes." "Dante, what is this? Who would... We'll figure it out. Just stay calm, for the girls. Can you do that?" Isabella looked at the mutilated doll, at the message it represented, and felt anything but calm. But she forced herself to breathe. "Yes. I'm coming. 5 minutes." It was actually 4. Dante's car screeched into the driveway with Marco's SUV right behind it. 2 more vehicles Isabella didn't recognize pulled up to the curb. Men in dark suits fanned out around the property with the efficiency of a military operation. Dante came through the front door like a storm, his expression carved from granite. He went straight to the box, examined it without touching, then turned to Isabella. Are you hurt? No, just scared. The girls? Still upstairs. He pulled her into his arms, and she let herself lean into his strength for just a moment. When he released her, his eyes were cold and calculating. This is a message, a threat. He pulled out his phone, took photos of the doll from multiple angles. Marco, get forensics on this. I want to know where it was bought, when, by whom. Check every camera within a 3-block radius. Already on it, boss. Dante looked at Isabella. I need you to think carefully. Have you noticed anything unusual in the past few weeks? Anyone following you? Strange cars on the street? Anything that felt off? Isabella's mind raced back through recent days. No, nothing. Everything's been normal. What about the girls? Have they mentioned anything? Anyone approaching them at school? No, they would have told me. She paused. Wouldn't they? Let's ask them. Elena and Mira were huddled together on Mira's bed when Isabella and Dante came upstairs. Mira's face was blotchy from crying. Elena looked furious. What was in the box? Elena demanded. Dante knelt in front of them, his expression gentle despite the rage Isabella could see simmering beneath. Something meant to scare us. Someone's idea of a threat. Like the man in my nightmares, Mira whispered. Maybe. But here's what I need you both to understand. You are safe. I have people outside right now making sure of it, and no one is going to hurt you. But I need your help. Elena's chin lifted. How? Has anyone talked to you at school? Any strangers? Anyone who seemed too interested in you or asked questions about your family? The twins exchanged glances. That silent communication again. There was a man, Mira said slowly. Last week. He was at the park across from school. He had a dog. Isabella's blood ran cold. What kind of man? Old, like grandpa age. He was nice. He asked if we wanted to pet his dog. Did you? Dante's voice was carefully controlled. No, Elena said quickly. We're not allowed to talk to strangers, but he was there for 3 days. Different dog each time. And he was always watching when we came out of school. Why didn't you tell me? Isabella heard the note of panic in her own voice. Because nothing happened, Elena said. We didn't talk to him. We didn't go near him. We just noticed him watching. Dante was already on his phone. Marco, school surveillance, last week. Man in his 60s with dogs. I want an ID in the next hour. He ended the call and looked at the girls. You did exactly right. Not talking to him, noticing he was there. That was smart. Now, I need you to stay home from school tomorrow, just for a day or two while we figure this out. Is someone trying to hurt us? Mira's voice was small. Dante hesitated, and Isabella saw him weighing honesty against comfort. Someone's trying to scare me by threatening what I care about most, but they're not going to succeed. Because you're scary too? Elena asked. A ghost of a smile crossed Dante's face. Something like that. Isabella sent the girls to wash up for dinner while she and Dante went back downstairs. Marco met them in the kitchen with a tablet showing security footage. Got him. Vincent Castellano. Works for the Romano family. They've been trying to move into your territory for the past 6 months. Dante studied the image of the man with cold focus. Where is he now? We're tracking his phone. Last ping was in Riverside near the industrial district. Good. Dante's voice was lethal. I want him picked up, quietly. No mess near the house or the school. Boss, if we move on him, Romano will... I don't care what Romano will do. Someone threatened my daughters. That's a line no one crosses. Dante turned to Isabella. Pack bags for you and the girls. Enough for a few days. What? Where are we going? Back to the estate, just until this is resolved. No. Isabella crossed her arms. We just got settled here. The girls are finally feeling secure. I'm not uprooting them again because some criminal wants to play power games. Isabella, no, Dante. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why I ran in the first place. Because your world follows you everywhere, and now it's following us. The words hung in the air, sharp and accusatory. Dante's jaw tightened. You're right, he said quietly. This is my fault. My world. My enemies. But that doesn't change the fact that you're in danger, that they're in danger, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe, even if you hate me for it. I don't hate you, I'm just... Isabella pressed her hands to her face. I'm terrified, because I knew this would happen. I knew that being with you meant living with this constant threat. Then what do you want me to do? Walk away? Pretend I'm not their father? Leave you to face this alone? Dante moved closer. Because I won't. I can't. They're mine, and I protect what's mine. By starting a war? If that's what it takes. Marco cleared his throat. Boss, we've got Castellano's location locked down. Do you want us to move? Dante looked at Isabella, and she saw the question in his eyes. Permission. He was asking her permission to do what he did best, to be the dangerous man she'd run from 7 years ago. Do what you have to do, she said finally. But not here. Not where the girls can see or hear or know about it. Understood. Dante left with Marco, taking most of the security team with him. 2 men remained outside the house, stationed at front and back. Isabella made dinner on autopilot, going through the motions while her mind raced with possibilities and fears. The girls picked at their food, both subdued. Is Dante coming back? Mira asked. Yes, baby. He's just handling some business. Dangerous business, Elena said. It wasn't a question. Isabella met her daughter's 2 knowing eyes. Sometimes doing the right thing requires difficult choices. Is he doing the right thing? He's protecting you. That's always the right thing. After dinner, Isabella got the girls ready for bed, even though it was barely 7 o'clock. She read to them from Mira's current favorite book, her voice steady even as her hands shook. When they finally fell asleep, Mira in her own bed, Elena on a sleeping bag on the floor because neither would let the other out of sight. Isabella went downstairs and waited. Dante returned just after 9. He looked tired and grim, but his hands were clean and his suit was immaculate. Whatever he'd done it carefully. It's handled, was all he said. Handled how? The man who is watching the girls is no longer a threat. The Romano family has been made to understand that you and the twins are completely off limits. There will be no retaliation. You're sure? I'm sure. Dante sank into the chair across from her. I met with Romano himself. Made it very clear that any move against my family would result in consequences he couldn't afford. He's a businessman first. He knows when to cut his losses. And the man? Castellano? Alive. Relocated to a city very far from here with a strong suggestion that he never return. Dante's eyes were hard. He'll be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life, but he'll be breathing. I kept my promise. No violence where it could touch you or the girls. Isabella wanted to ask more, wanted to demand details, but part of her didn't want to know. Didn't want to confirm the extent of what Dante was capable of when his family was threatened. The girls asked about you at dinner, she said instead. What did you tell them? That you were protecting them. Good. He paused. They should know that's what I'll always do, no matter what it costs. That's what I'm afraid of. Isabella stood, moving to the window. The security team was still visible outside, dark shapes against the streetlights. What happens the next time someone threatens them? And the time after that? How many enemies do you have, Dante? How many people who might use 2 little girls to get to you? I've made arrangements. Increased security at the school. A team will shadow them discreetly. They won't even know they're there. So they'll live in a cage. A beautiful cage, but a cage nonetheless. They'll live safely. There's a difference. Isabella turned to face him. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, safety looks a lot like prison. Dante stood, his frustration finally breaking through his controlled exterior. What do you want me to say? That I wish I was a different man. I do. That I wish my past didn't put them at risk. I do. But I can't change what I am, Isabella. I can only deal with the reality we have. And if that reality is impossible, if there's no way to give them both safety and freedom, then I'll find a third option. I'll always find a way. He moved toward her, stopping just short of touching. I failed them for 7 years. I won't fail them now. The next morning, Dante picked up the girls for school himself. Isabella had argued against it, argued that they needed to maintain normalcy, but he'd been immovable. Just for today, he'd said, let me take them. Let me see them safely there and back. So Isabella watched from the porch As her daughters climbed into Dante's SUV, Mira chattering excitedly about a project due Friday, Elena quieter but watchful. The security car followed them down the street. The house felt too empty without them. Isabella tried to work. She'd taken a job doing remote bookkeeping for one of Dante's legitimate businesses, work she could do from home, but couldn't focus. She kept seeing that mutilated doll, kept imagining worse things, kept wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake letting Dante back into their lives. Her phone rang at 11. Mrs. Cruz, an unfamiliar woman's voice. This is Principal Davidson at Riverside Elementary. I'm calling about Elena. Isabella's heart stopped. Is she hurt? No, she's fine. But there was an incident at recess. She got into a fight with another student. A fight? Elena? Her quiet, controlled daughter? She punched a boy in her class, gave him a bloody nose. She's in my office now. I need you to come in. Isabella was in the car before the principal finished speaking. She called Dante on the way. I'm already there, he said. I was on site when it happened. Meet me in the principal's office. Elena sat in a chair that was too big for her, arms crossed, jaw set in a stubborn line that was pure Dante. Her knuckles were scraped. There was a grass stain on her new uniform. Dante stood near the window, his expression unreadable. Principal Davidson, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, sat behind her desk with the expression of someone who dealt with too many difficult conversations. What happened? Isabella asked, kneeling in front of Elena. He said things, Elena said flatly. What kind of things? About you, about Dante, about us. Her voice cracked slightly. He said Dante was a criminal, and we were criminals' kids, and that you were his... She stopped, her face flushing. Bad words. About you. Isabella's breath caught. Elena told him to stop. He didn't, so I made him stop. Principal Davidson cleared her throat. The other student, Tyler Morrison, claims Elena struck him without provocation. However, several witnesses say Tyler was taunting her, calling her names, making crude comments about her family. Where did an 8-year-old learn to talk like that? Dante's voice was dangerously quiet. Tyler's father is... The principal hesitated. He's been vocal about certain concerns regarding your family's presence at our school, Mr. Moretti. Has he? It wasn't a question. Dante, Isabella warned, reading the violence in his stillness. Elena can't hit other students, no matter the provocation, Principal Davidson continued. Our policy is clear. This is her first offense, so I'm giving her a 3-day suspension rather than expulsion. But if it happens again, it won't, Isabella said quickly. Elena apologized to Principal Davidson, but he... Now. Elena's jaw worked, but she turned to the principal. I'm sorry I broke the rules. Thank you, Elena. You can wait outside while I speak with your parents. When Elena was gone, Principal Davidson folded her hands on her desk. I want to be honest with you. Tyler's father is pushing for Elena's expulsion. He's threatening to go to the school board, claiming his son isn't safe with that kind of family at this school. That kind of family, Dante repeated softly. Meaning what exactly? Mr. Moretti, I'm not here to judge anyone's background, but the reality is that your reputation precedes you, and some parents are concerned. My daughter defended herself against a bully. That's what you're suspending her for? I'm suspending her for using violence. The provocation is noted, and Tyler will also face consequences. But I can't have students fighting regardless of circumstances. Isabella could feel Dante's anger radiating like heat. She put a hand on his arm. We understand. Thank you for being fair. I do want to mention, Principal Davidson added carefully, that there's an excellent private school across town, Sterling Academy. It might be a better fit for your family. More security, more discretion. You're suggesting we leave, Dante said. I'm suggesting you consider your options, for Elena's sake as much as anyone's. In the car, Elena sat between Isabella and Dante in the back while Marco drove. She stared out the window, her small face set in hard lines. You shouldn't have hit him, Isabella said gently. I know. But you did the right thing defending yourself with words first. Lot of good that did. Dante turned to look at her. Elena, look at me. She did, reluctantly. People are going to say things about me, about our family, ugly things sometimes. Things that hurt. His voice was steady. And I'm sorry for that. Sorry that my choices affect you. It's not your fault Tyler's a jerk. No. But it's my fault people think the way they do about me. I earned that reputation. He paused. But here's what I need you to understand. Words can hurt, but violence should always be a last resort, not a first response. Even when someone insults Mama? Even then. Because the moment you throw that first punch, you give them ammunition. You prove them right when they say we're dangerous. He reached out, carefully straightening her collar. We have to be better, smarter, more controlled, because people are watching, waiting for us to fail. That's not fair. No, it's not. But it's reality. He glanced at Isabella. What do you think about Sterling Academy? It's expensive, Isabella said automatically. That's not what I asked. She looked at Elena, saw the resignation in her daughter's eyes. The acceptance that they'd always be different, always be watched, always be judged. I think we should talk to them, Isabella said. See if it's a better fit. They picked up Mira early, explaining only that Elena wasn't feeling well and they were having a family day. Mira saw through it immediately, but didn't press. Back at the house, Isabella made hot chocolate while Dante fielded phone calls on the patio. Is Dante mad at me? Elena asked quietly. No, baby. He's mad at the situation. At the people who make things harder for you. I don't want to change schools. I know, but maybe it's worth looking at. Maybe a fresh start would be good. People will still talk, will still be different. Different isn't bad, Elena. It is when everyone treats you like you're scary. She looked up at Isabella with heartbreaking clarity. Is that what we are now? The scary family? Before Isabella could answer, Dante came back inside. Marco just got word. Tyler Morrison's father filed a police report, claiming Elena assaulted his son. She's 7, Isabella said, incredulous. He's pushing for charges, juvenile court. Can he do that? He can try. He won't succeed. I'll have lawyers bury him in paperwork, but it means more attention, more scrutiny. Dante's expression was grim. I'm sorry. This is exactly what I didn't want. That evening, after the girls were in bed, Isabella and Dante sat in the living room with an uncomfortable silence between them. We can't keep living like this, Isabella said finally. Waiting for the next threat, the next crisis. What's the alternative? I don't know. Maybe the principal was right. Maybe a fresh start somewhere else would be better. Running again? Not running, choosing safety. There is no safety if I'm not there to provide it. Dante leaned forward. Listen to me, Isabella. This situation with the Morrisons, it's temporary. Annoying, but temporary. The doll? Handled. Romano won't come near us again. But someone else will. There's always someone else. Yes, there probably is. He met her eyes. But I'd rather face threats together than wonder if you're safe while you're far away. I'd rather be there to protect you than imagine you handling danger alone. Even if being with you creates that danger? Even then, he paused. The girls need stability, a real home, both parents, not this divided life where they're torn between two worlds. What are you suggesting? Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Isabella's breath caught. I'm suggesting we stop pretending this is temporary, that we're just co-parents with careful boundaries. He opened the box, revealing a ring. The same ring he'd had 7 years ago, the one he'd been planning to offer before she disappeared. I'm suggesting we be a family, a real one. Isabella stared at the ring, at the man offering it, at the life he was proposing. Dante, I know the timing is terrible. I know we have 1,000 problems to solve, but I also know that I love you, that I've loved you for 7 years even when I thought you were gone, that I love our daughters and want to build a life with all of you. His voice roughened. Marry me, not because of convenience or security or obligation. Marry me because we're already a family. We just need to stop being afraid of it. Tears streamed down Isabella's face. What if I can't do this? What if I can't handle your world? Then we'll find a way to change my world. I've already started. Legitimate businesses, legal operations, getting out of anything that could hurt them. He reached for her hand. I'm not the same man I was 7 years ago. And I'll keep changing, keep becoming better for as long as it takes. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Isabella looked at the ring, gleaming in the lamplight, looked at Dante, his eyes full of hope and fear in equal measure, thought about her daughters upstairs, sleeping peacefully in a home they were learning to love, and she thought about the question Elena had asked. Are we the scary family? Maybe they were. Maybe they always would be. But they were also brave and loyal and fiercely protective of each other. They were a family. Yes, Isabella whispered. Dante's breath left him in a rush. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. She broke off as he pulled her into his arms, the ring box still clutched in his hand. You're sure? He asked against her hair. I'm terrified, but I'm sure. He pulled back just enough to slide the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, just as it had 7 years ago when he'd first had it sized for her. We'll figure out the rest, Dante said. The school, the threats, all of it. Together. Together, Isabella agreed. And for the first time since that midnight phone call 6 weeks ago, she felt something beyond fear and hope. She felt certainty. The twins found the ring the next morning. Isabella had meant to tell them carefully, to plan the conversation, to prepare them for what this meant. But Mira noticed it immediately when Isabella handed her a glass of orange juice at breakfast, her sharp eyes catching the diamond's gleam. Mama, what's that on your finger? Elena's head snapped up from her cereal. Both girls stared at the ring with identical expressions of surprise. Isabella glanced at Dante, who'd stayed the night on the couch, a new development they'd agreed on after the engagement. He gave her a small nod, leaving this moment to her. It's an engagement ring, Isabella said, her heart pounding. Dante asked me to marry him last night, and I said yes. Silence stretched across the kitchen table. Mira's mouth formed a perfect O. Elena's expression was unreadable, that careful blankness she used when processing something big. So you're getting married, Elena said slowly. To Dante, our dad. Yes. And we'd all live together, like a real family? We already are a real family, Dante said gently. This just makes it official. Mira launched herself out of her chair and threw her arms around Isabella's waist. Does this mean you love him again? Like in the old pictures? Isabella's throat tightened. I never stopped loving him, baby. I was just scared. But you're not scared anymore? I'm still scared, but I'm choosing to be brave instead. Elena hadn't moved. She sat perfectly still, her gaze moving between Isabella and Dante with that analytical intensity that sometimes made her seem far older than 8. Elena? Dante's voice was careful. What are you thinking? I'm thinking... Elena paused, choosing her words. I'm thinking this is good. But I'm also thinking people at school are going to say more things. Tyler Morrison's going to tell everyone his dad was right about us. Tyler Morrison's opinion doesn't matter, Isabella said. It does when all the other kids listen to him. Elena looked at Dante. You said we have to be smarter, more controlled. Getting married right after I punch someone doesn't seem very controlled. The observation was so sharp, so uncomfortably accurate that Isabella felt her chest constrict. Her 8-year-old daughter was worrying about optics and strategy. Dante pulled out the chair next to Elena and sat down, making himself level with her. You're right. The timing isn't ideal. But here's what I've learned. There's never a perfect time for anything. And if we wait for everyone else to approve of our choices, we'll wait forever. So we just don't care what people think. We care, but we don't let their opinions control our lives. He paused. Besides, we're not getting married tomorrow. We'll take our time. Do it right. Give you both a chance to get used to the idea. How much time? Mira asked, still clinging to Isabella. However long we need. Months, probably. Maybe we'll wait until summer, after school's out. Elena seemed to consider this. Finally, she nodded. Okay, but I have conditions. Dante's eyebrows rose. Conditions? I want to help plan the wedding, and I want Mira and me to be part of it. Not just watching, part of it. Deal, Isabella said immediately. You can help with everything. And, Elena's voice dropped slightly, I want us to talk to someone, like a family counselor or something, because we're all acting like everything's fine, but Mira still has nightmares and I still get angry, and you... She looked at Isabella. You still barely eat when you're stressed. We're not fine, we're just pretending. The silence that followed was broken only by the kitchen clock ticking. Isabella felt exposed, seen in a way she hadn't expected. She'd thought she was protecting the girls by appearing strong, by hiding her struggles. But Elena saw through it all. "You're absolutely right," Dante said quietly. "And I think that's a very smart condition. We should talk to someone, all of us." "Really?" Elena's surprise showed how little she'd expected him to agree. "Really? Being a family doesn't mean having no problems. It means facing them together." Something in Elena's expression softened. Not quite trust, but the beginning of it. "Okay then." Mira squeezed Isabella tighter. "Are we going to have a big wedding? With a dress and flowers and cake?" "Whatever kind of wedding you want," Isabella said, running her fingers through Mira's hair. "Big or small, fancy or simple?" "I want it to be happy," Mira said simply. "Just really, really happy." Later that morning, while the girls were occupied with a movie in the living room, Isabella sat with Dante at the kitchen table reviewing the documentation Marco had compiled overnight. The Morrison situation had escalated exactly as Dante predicted. Multiple calls to the school board, threats of legal action, and a news article in the local paper about gang violence infiltrating suburban schools. "They're calling Elena a gang member," Isabella said, staring at the printed article with disbelief. "She's 8 years old. They're using her to get to me. It's a power play." Dante flipped through the pages. "Morrison owns a construction company that's been trying to win city contracts I currently hold. This isn't about Tyler or Elena. It's about business. Everything with you is about business. Not everything, but this is." He pulled out another document. "I had my lawyers look into Morrison's company. He's got 3 OSHA violations from the past year, 2 lawsuits from workers who were injured on site, and he's been underbidding projects then delivering substandard work." "So you're going to destroy him?" "I'm going to remove him as a threat. There's a difference." Dante met her eyes. "I told you I was changing how I operate. No violence, no intimidation, just facts, exposure, and letting him bury himself. And if that does not work, it will work. Men like Morrison can't stand up to scrutiny. He's built his business on cutting corners and making noise. The moment someone looks closely at what he's actually doing, the whole operation falls apart." Isabella wanted to argue, to point out that this was still manipulation, still using power to destroy an opponent. But she also thought about that article calling her daughter a gang member, about Tyler's taunts in the schoolyard, about the fear in Mira's eyes when she talked about the bad men in her nightmares. "Do what you need to do," she said finally. Over the next 2 weeks, Morrison's world quietly imploded. A surprise inspection found multiple code violations at his current job sites, resulting in work stoppages and penalties. 2 of his major clients discovered discrepancies in their contracts and pulled out. A journalist started investigating his business practices for a piece on construction fraud. None of it traced back to Dante. It was simply the natural consequence of years of cutting corners finally catching up. The Morrison family withdrew Tyler from Riverside Elementary and moved across town. The police report against Elena was dropped, and Principal Davidson called to inform them that the school board had voted to implement a stronger anti-bullying policy. "I want to be clear," Principal Davidson said when Isabella met with her. "Elena is welcome to return to Riverside. We'd like her back, actually. She's a bright student, and what happened was unfortunate but not uncommon. Children fight. We'd like to help her handle conflict better." Isabella had already toured Sterling Academy with the girls. It was impressive. Smaller classes, better security, a more diverse student body that included several children from complicated families. Elena had been interested in their art program. Mira had loved the library, but Riverside was familiar. The teachers knew them. They'd made friends. "Can I think about it?" Isabella asked. "Of course, take your time." That evening, Isabella put the decision to the girls. "You have a choice. We can stay at Riverside, where you know the teachers and have friends, or we can transfer to Sterling, where it's a fresh start." "What do you think we should do?" Elena asked. "I think you should decide. This is your education, your life. What do you want?" The twins exchanged one of their long, silent looks. Finally, Mira spoke. "I like our friends at Riverside, and Miss Chen is really nice. But people know about the fight," Elena added. "They'll remember." "People will always remember something," Dante said from the doorway. They hadn't heard him come in. "The question is whether you let that define you, or whether you show them who you really are. How do we do that? Elena asked. By being exactly who you are. Smart, kind, strong. The twins who help their classmates with homework and share their lunch with anyone who's hungry and stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. He moved into the room. You can do that anywhere, but it might be easier to do it with friends who already know you. So we should stay? Mira asked. I think you should choose what feels right, and know that wherever you go, you'll be fine, because you're Cruz girls, you're also Moretti girls, and that makes you unstoppable. The twins chose to stay at Riverside. They returned to school the following Monday with new confidence and a security detail so discreet that even Isabella sometimes forgot they were there. Dante had hired a child psychologist who specialized in families affected by crime, a woman with kind eyes and endless patience who met with them once a week. In those sessions, things came out that Isabella hadn't known. Mira admitted she'd been afraid to sleep alone for months, terrified that if she closed her eyes, her mother would disappear. Elena confessed that she'd started the fight with Tyler not just because of what he said, but because she'd been carrying so much anger about their old life, about being poor and scared and invisible. And Isabella talked about the guilt, the crushing, constant guilt of not being enough, of making choices that hurt everyone she loved, of running instead of fighting. You did what you thought was right with the information you had, Dr. Chen told her gently. That's all any parent can do. But I was wrong. I hurt them. I hurt Dante. Yes, and now you're here, doing the work to heal that hurt. That's what matters. Slowly, carefully, they built something new. Not the perfect family from movies or storybooks, but a real one, messy and complicated and learning as they went. Dante moved in officially 2 months after the engagement, taking the master bedroom while Isabella initially kept her own room. A compromise that felt right until it didn't. 3 weeks later, she found herself knocking on his door at midnight, unable to sleep alone anymore. I'm scared, she admitted when he opened the door. Of what? That this is too good. That something will come and destroy it. Dante pulled her into the room, into his arms, into the warmth and safety she'd denied herself for 7 years. Something probably will try, but we'll handle it, together. And they did handle things. Small crises that felt enormous in the moment. Mira struggling with long division, Elena's frustration when the piano pieces got harder, Isabella's panic when an unexpected bill threatened their budget, until she remembered she could ask for help now. Dante handled his own struggles too, learning to be present instead of working 18-hour days. Learning that his daughters needed his time more than his money. Learning that sometimes the most powerful thing he could do was read bedtime stories or help with homework or just sit on the floor playing board games. The wedding was planned for late spring, a small ceremony in the garden of Dante's estate with only close friends and family. The girls threw themselves into planning with an enthusiasm that bordered on obsession. Elena designed the programs. Mira chose the flowers. They both insisted on wearing matching dresses and walking Isabella down the aisle. Because we're giving you to Dante, Mira explained seriously, and Dante to you. We're making us all a family. 2 weeks before the wedding, Marco appeared at the house with a strange expression. Boss, you need to see this. In Dante's study, Marco pulled up security footage from that morning. A man approaching the front gate, older and thinner than when Dante had last seen him. Marcus. Isabella watched the footage over Dante's shoulder, her blood running cold. I thought you exiled him. I did. He's got something, Marco said, zooming in on the envelope in Marcus's hand. He left it at the gate, didn't try to come in, just left it and walked away. Dante's jaw was tight. Where is he now? Gone. Disappeared into the city. Want me to track him? No. Dante stood. Get the envelope, scan it for anything dangerous. If it's clean, bring it to me. 20 minutes later, they sat around the kitchen table staring at the contents of the envelope. Documents, financial records, names, and addresses. It's everything, Dante said quietly. Every illegal operation I've ever been connected to, every person I've worked with, everything someone would need to build a case against me. Why would he give you this? Isabella asked. Because he's dying. Dante held up a handwritten note that had been tucked in with the documents. Lung cancer. Stage 4. He's got maybe 3 months. Isabella read over his shoulder. The note was brief. You were right. I was wrong. These are yours to do with as you wish. I only ask that you remember, I did what I thought was protecting the family. I see now I was protecting the wrong things. Give them a better life than we had. What are you going to do with it? Isabella asked. Dante gathered the documents carefully. I'm going to finish what I started. Use these to untangle myself from everything that could hurt you or the girls. Cut ties with anyone who might still see me as a criminal instead of a businessman. That could take years. Then it takes years. I'm not going anywhere. He spent the next week in meetings with lawyers and accountants, systematically dismantling every connection to his former life. Some associates accepted buyouts. Others required more persuasion. But one by one, the threads were cut. Marco was the hardest conversation. I'm not leaving you unprotected, Marco said when Dante explained. We've been through too much. I'm not asking you to leave. I'm asking you to shift roles. Head of personal security instead of everything else. Babysitting duty? Protecting the most important people in my life. There's nothing more important than that. Marco studied him for a long moment. You've really changed, haven't you? This isn't strategy. You actually believe this. I have to. For them. The wedding day dawned clear and warm with the kind of perfect spring weather that felt like a gift. Isabella woke early in the guest room where she'd spent the night. Dante had insisted on the tradition of not seeing the bride before the ceremony, and found both twins already awake, bouncing with excitement. It's today, Mira squealed. You're getting married today. And we look beautiful, Elena added, twirling in her pale blue dress. They did look beautiful, both of them, growing so fast it sometimes hurt to watch. Taller, stronger, more confident, still healing from years of fear and scarcity, but healing together. Maria helped Isabella into her dress, simple and elegant cream-colored lace that Dante had never seen. The twins insisted on doing her hair, working together with surprising skill to create an intricate braid woven with tiny white flowers. Perfect, Mira declared. You look like a princess, Elena added, then wrinkled her nose. But not a helpless one. A strong one. The best kind, Isabella agreed. Downstairs, 50 guests had assembled in the garden. Small by most standards, but to Isabella it felt enormous. These were people who mattered, friends she'd made over the past months, Dante's business associates who'd survived the purge, teachers from the girls' school, Dr. Chen, even Principal Davidson. And in the front row, looking frail but determined, was Marcus. Dante had invited him despite Isabella's protests, despite the pain and anger that still existed between them. He's dying, Dante had said, and he tried to make it right. I won't forgive him for what he did, but I can let him see that we survived it, that we're happy. Now, as Isabella stood at the garden entrance with a twin on each side, she saw Marcus's eyes fill with tears, saw him nod to Dante, saw Dante nod back. A complicated forgiveness, but forgiveness nonetheless. The music started, some classical piece the girls had chosen. Isabella took a deep breath. Ready? She asked her daughters. Ready, they said together. They walked down the aisle as a unit, mother and daughters, past and future, everything that mattered. Guests turned to watch, but Isabella's eyes were locked on Dante. He stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored suit, Marco beside him as best man, his expression open and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. When they reached him, the twins carefully handed Isabella off, then stood to the side holding hands. The officiant, a judge who owed Dante several favors, kept the ceremony brief and personal. Vows they'd written themselves, promises witnessed by everyone who mattered. I promise to choose you every day, Isabella said, her voice steady despite the tears. To build this life with you, to trust you with our daughters and our future. I promise to protect you, Dante replied, not by keeping you locked away, but by standing beside you, to be the father our girls deserve and the partner you need. They exchanged rings. The judge pronounced them married, and when Dante kissed her, the garden erupted in applause. But Isabella barely heard it. She was too focused on the feeling of Dante's arms around her, the knowledge that this was real and permanent and right. The reception was exactly what Mira had wished for, happy, relentlessly, joyfully happy. There was dancing and cake and speeches that made everyone laugh and cry. Elena gave a toast that was surprisingly eloquent for an 8-year-old, talking about family being more than blood, about choosing each other every day. Our mama chose to be brave, Elena said, and Dante chose to be better. And we chose to believe in second chances. So here's to our family, the scary one that's actually just really, really full of love. The guests laughed and cheered. Dante pulled both girls into a hug, and Isabella captured the moment in her memory, the three people she loved most, together, and safe and hers. As the sun set and guests began to leave, Isabella found herself standing at the edge of the garden with Dante, watching their daughters dance with Marco, who was patiently teaching them some elaborate twirl. "We did it," she said softly. "We did. I'm still scared sometimes." "So am I." Dante pulled her closer. "But I'm more happy than scared now. That's new." Isabella thought about the journey that had brought them here. The midnight phone call, the hospital, the threats and fear and complicated healing. 7 years lost and slowly being reclaimed. "Do you think Marcus will come to the house?" she asked. "Before—" "I don't know. I told him he could. If he wants to meet the girls properly, say goodbye." Dante paused. "Would you be okay with that?" "I think so. For your sake, not his. You need closure. We all do." Marcus did visit 3 weeks later. He was weaker, clearly ill, but he sat in the living room and met his grandnieces with a mixture of pride and regret. "You're so much like your father," he told Elena, who studied him with cautious interest. "Smart, observant, strong." "And like our mother," Elena countered. "We're like both of them." "Yes. Yes, you are." Marcus looked at Isabella. "I'm sorry for what I did, for the years I stole from all of you." "I'm sorry you're dying," Isabella said simply, "but I can't forgive you yet. Maybe someday, but not yet." "That's fair." He turned to Dante. "You became the man I should have helped you be instead of the weapon I tried to make you. I'm proud of you. Finally." Dante's expression was unreadable. "Goodbye, Marcus." It was both forgiveness and dismissal. Marcus nodded, understanding, and left. He died 2 weeks later. Dante didn't attend the funeral, but he sent flowers. Not forgiveness, exactly, but acknowledgement, an ending. The months that followed were ordinary in the best possible way. School and work and family dinners, piano recitals and art shows, bedtime stories and Saturday morning pancakes, the girl's 9th birthday, celebrated with a party that filled the house with laughter. Isabella took a job managing finances for one of Dante's legitimate companies, work she was good at, work that gave her independence while keeping her close to the family business that was slowly becoming just that, legitimate business. Dante kept his promise, systematically transforming his empire. It wasn't fast or easy, but it was steady. Real estate development, technology investments, restaurants and hospitality. Things that could be explained at a parent-teacher conference without causing concerned looks. The nightmares faded. Mira slept through the night more often than not. Elena's anger softened into normal 8-year-old frustration with homework and chores. They were becoming regular kids, with regular problems, living regular lives. Except they weren't regular. They were extraordinary, strong and resilient and loved. One evening, nearly a year after the wedding, Isabella found Dante in his study reviewing quarterly reports. She leaned against the doorframe, watching him work. "What?" he asked, noticing her smile. "Nothing. Just thinking about that phone call, the night Mira called you. 2:47 a.m. You remember the exact time?" "I remember everything about that night. It was the night my life started over." He set down his pen. "Why are you thinking about it?" "Because I was terrified. Of you, of the future, of everything. And now—" She moved into the room, settling into his lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Now I can't imagine being anywhere else." Dante wrapped his arms around her. "Neither can I. The girls want to know if we're going to have more children. Are we? I don't know. Maybe. Someday. Is that crazy? Probably, but we're good at crazy." They sat like that for a while, comfortable in the silence, until they heard footsteps thundering down the stairs. "Mama, Dante!" Mira burst into the study, Elena right behind her. "We finished our project. Want to see?" It was a family tree, drawn on poster board with careful detail. Isabella and Dante at the top, the twins below them, branches extending to include Maria, Marco, Dr. Chen, their teachers, their friends. A family that was more than blood, more than tradition. A family they'd chosen. A family they'd fought for. A family they'd built from midnight phone calls and second chances and love that refused to quit. "It's perfect," Isabella said, pulling both girls close. "We're perfect," Mira corrected, "all of us together." And looking at her husband, her daughters, the life they'd created from ashes and fear and impossible hope, Isabella had to agree. They were perfect. Not because they had no problems or pain or past, but because they'd chosen each other. Every single day, they chose each other, and that was enough. That was everything. That was home.